New ideas in Europe. We know that planets revolve around the sun and that the earth is round because of two Europeans, Copernicus and Magellan, who lived several centuries ago. The Renaissance. The famous Europeans lived around 500 years ago, yet we still remember them because the things they did were so important. At that time, most people were not allowed to think freely for themselves. However, some people preferred to think for themselves. They asked questions and tried to find the answer to these questions. They developed questioning attitude. This is how Copernicus was able to work out that planets revolve around the sun. Until then, people had thought that the sun went around the earth. 500 years ago, people also thought that the earth was flat and that if you sailed too far out, you would fall off the edge of the earth. Magellan thought that the earth is round, not flat. He wanted to prove this, so he bravely set out to sail round the world. No one had ever done this before. Ideas like these and other very interesting things happened in Europe in the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. This period is called Renaissance. Some things that happened during the Renaissance, there were new ideas in the sciences. There was also a lot of creativity in arts like painting, sculpture, and literature. People made journeys of exploration. The sciences. Some sciences like astronomy, the study of heavenly bodies, geography and anatomy, the study of the structure of the human body, developed a lot. Three very famous Renaissance scientists were Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton. Copernicus was born in Poland. He spent many years observing the night sky and recording his observations. These observations made him think. He realized that the Earth and other planets revolve around the Sun. Galileo, an Italian, was born about a century after Copernicus. Many scientific ideas interested him. He took his pupils to the top of a tower. Here he dropped two things of different weights to show them that everything falls to the ground at the same rate. He invented the telescope. With it, he saw four moons of Jupiter and also details on the surface of the moon. He agreed with Copernicus that the earth went around the sun. However, at that time, people believed that the earth was at the center of the universe, so Galileo had to face a trial of his beliefs. Today, we know that he was right. Isaac Newton was born in England about a century later. He built on the work that Galileo had done. He explained why things fall to the ground, because the earth has a force called gravity which pulls things down. Painting and sculpture. The new attitude had an effect on the arts too. Artists and sculptors produced magnificent work that was different from the work of earlier centuries. Their work is some of the most beautiful in the world. Many Renaissance artists were Italian. Two of the most famous were Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. Leonardo da Vinci was one of the most amazing people of Renaissance. He was both an artist and a scientist. As a young boy, he received training as a painter, and at the same time, he learned how various machines worked. He studied anatomy so that his paintings of people could more accurate. Some of his paintings are very famous. His diaries and notebooks are filled with fascinating drawings and notes on many new machines. In his From Right to Left, the writing can only be read by holding up the page to a mirror. Drawings by Leonardo da Vinci. Mona Lisa, drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. Michelangelo was a great sculptor and painter who also studied anatomy. This helped him to make several beautiful sculptures in marble, including three called Pieta, pronounced P-E-A, which show Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, holding his body after his death. He also painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, a church in the Vatican City near Rome, in Italy. This has hundreds of large human figures and took 4 years to do. Michelangelo also designed the world's largest dome in the world. the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, a huge church at the Vatican City. He died before the dome was completed. Paintings of Michelangelo, Pieta, and Sistine Chapel. Literature. William Shakespeare, an Englishman, was one of the greatest writers of this period. He wrote plays and poetry. His plays were performed in London and were very popular. They were even performed as far away as Poland. They are still performed all over the world. His plays and poetry are studied in schools and colleges, including in India. Many phrases from his plays have become a part of the English language. Exploration. The questioning attitude, the desire to find out more, had another very big impact. Several people set out on journeys of exploration to find out what lay beyond the seas. Shipbuilding had improved, so it was possible to make long sea journeys. Some famous explorers of this time were Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Magellan. Though most people believed that the earth was flat, Christopher Columbus thought it was round, a replica of one of the ships in which he knew that India, which had trade links with Columbus, sailed in Europe, lay to the east. He thought that the earth could find a way to India by sailing westwards across the Atlantic Ocean. This would also show that the earth is round. He sailed with 3 ships. After over 2 months, he reached land. He thought that he had reached India, but it was actually an island in the West Indies. Vasco da Gama tried a different route to India. He sailed around Africa and crossed the Indian Ocean to reach the western coast of India. This route then helped many other Europeans to travel to India and Asia in search of trade. Since Columbus could not prove that the earth is round, a little later Ferdinand Magellan decided to sail around the world to prove this. He left with 5 ships near South America. One ship sank and another returned home. He continued with 3 ships. At the East Indies, now Philippines, he was killed in a battle. The other sailors continued the journey with the remaining 2 ships, but eventually only one ship returned home. It took 3 years to complete the journey, but it proved that the earth is indeed round. The journeys of 3 explorers. The Renaissance was the start of new ideas and changes that lasted for many more centuries. Another important period, which came a few centuries later, was the Industrial Revolution. Revolution means complete change. The Industrial Revolution. At the start of the Renaissance, not many people were interested in the science, and there were only a few scientists. However, by the 18th became century, thousands of books available for people became of the invention of the century's printing press some earlier. Many more people were educated and could read, and these books learn about all the various new ideas of the Renaissance. As a more people developed a result, many scientific and questioning attitude. One result of this scientific attitude was that there were many scientific improvements and inventions. Earlier, people had used mostly human, animal, or wind power to do work. During the 18th century, the power of steam was discovered. Machines were invented that used this power to different kinds of work. Several changes took place as a result of scientific improvements and inventions. Some of these changes were factories were set up where machines produced many different types of goods. Since the goods needed to be sold, trade also increased. People gave up their traditional work of farming and left their homes and villages to go and work in the factories. Several new industrial towns developed around the factories. Transport improved a lot. This helped to carry the manufactured goods to far off markets. Travel also became easier for people. After that, coming of agriculture, the start of the machine age was the next major development in human history. These developments brought about a major change in the way people had lived for centuries. This is why these events are called the Industrial Revolution. It started in England and then spread to other parts of the world. The wonderful creative work of the Renaissance is the heritage of the entire world. However, it is the work of the explorers and scientists as well as the attitude of thinking for oneself and asking questions that had an effect on India. The timeline shows you when the new ideas appeared. You will see how important events took. 15th century, printing press was invented by Gutenberg. Columbus and Vasco da Gama made their journeys. 16th century, Ferdinand Magellan made his journey. Copernicus and Galileo did new work in astronomy. William Shakespeare was born. 17th century, Isaac Newton was born. The English first came to India. 18th century, many more people were educated. Many improvements took place in the textiles industry and improved steam engine was invented. 19th century, sailing ships were replaced by steamships. Steam engines were used for locomotives, train engines. Railways started in India. 20th century. Thank you.